As you guys all know, New Hampshire Rebellion has not just been walking the talk through all weather, we've been asking the question too, working with fabulous grassroots volunteers like the one who will be featured in this video. She's named Kath Allen. She'll be here, I'm sure, throughout the weekend. But this is her at a recent town hall asking Ohio Governor John Kasich what he'll do to end the corrupting influence of money in politics. And as you can see, this is a question she's asked him a few times, so they've developed a little bit of a rapport. She'll be at his 100th town hall tonight in Bedford.
I think this is six.
Okay.
And thank you, Governor, for being here. And I do like you.
Yes.
At many of these New Hampshire town hall meetings, you've expressed interest in a plan championed by the late Senator Warren Rudman to encourage small dollar donors and make candidates more accountable to ordinary citizens through a $200 tax credit for political contributions. Now that you've had time to think about it, would you support that plan as president and/or another plan? Thank you.
Yeah, I had so much time to think. I'm not sure. I mean, I like the idea of more low-dollar folks being able to affect the system. I don't like a handful of billionaires determining who's going to be president. Why would I like that? And I just don't think the system's very good right now, where handful control is money into the super PACs and all this other stuff. So I'm open to change on campaign finance. I wouldn't want to look and figure out, what I want to do is pass a plan, and then we turn around a week later and say that's the worst thing I've ever seen. Because we've been stumbling in this. But the idea of more low-dollar givers, how do you think about that? More low-dollar givers and incentives to have more low-dollar things, more low-dollar contributors driving these campaigns, it makes a lot of sense to me. What I do think we need is major redistricting reform. We shouldn't be able to gerrymander. I mean, this gerrymander, I think gerrymandering in America since Moby Dick was a minnow. Okay, we do it all the time. And it's not about people remember. They know it. I believe they know gerrymandering. Maybe it's because these lines look so weird that just keep us sticks with people. But the problem with gerrymandering is when you set up all the same Republican and same Democrat districts, then they worry about primaries. Both on the Democrat side, they worry about being attacked from the left, and on the Republican side, being attacked from the right, and it tends to move people farther and farther from being able to have a natural position. Makes it harder to get things done. I'm going to be very involved in this. I think it's really, really a significant problem in our country. And in fact, you've got a good, nice gerrymandered district. Let's make it more competitive. So that's where I think we ought to go. Mike's the Attorney General of the state of Ohio, and he's also a two-term United States Senator. And I think the gerrymandering is ridiculous, and we need to fix it. I mean, once and for all, fix it. Make everybody have to compete in competitive districts as best we can. Can I sign out? Okay, good. All right.
So that was just one example of many. We've been out to lots of candidate events. I think it's a good example and worth flagging. John Kasich is unique among the Republican field in that he has taken a really strong stance on ending gerrymandering and has spoken specifically to that when asked in town halls. So that's one of the points on our Big Money Fight Big Money pledge, and it's one we're glad to see him thinking about and evolving on. John Kasich isn't going to be here today, unfortunately, but I am really happy to introduce Brad Cook, who's an attorney for Sheehan Phinney. He's been there since 1973 and served as president of the firm. He represents many colleges and private secondary schools, religious organizations throughout New England, and hospital, nursing homes, and other charitable clients. He also represents both for-profit and not-for-profit clients before the New Hampshire legislature on a regular basis and practices general corporate law. 2015 2015, Brad received the Lifetime Achievement Award from the Business and Industry Association of New Hampshire. He currently serves as chair of the Warren B. Redmond Center campaign and is the immediate past president of the Boys Club of New London. He is a member of the Open Democracy Board and has endorsed Governor John Kasich for president.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here. I was thinking as I came over, and you walk by every corner in Manchester this weekend and you see somebody wanting to interview somebody. And I was wearing 3 political buttons. I got up this morning and I said, there are no Kasich buttons, they're stickers. Anybody wants one, I have a few. But they don't have buttons, so I got 3 buttons out. And I thought, whatever happened to people like this? Now, you won't like some of these names, but one of them was a Richard Nixon button from 1960. One was a Rockefeller button from 1968. And one was a Dole button from 1996. And if you take all the money that those people spent to run for president, it wouldn't be as much money as they have spent already on the New Hampshire primary. This morning in the Union Leader, I don't know how many of you read the lead article in the Union Leader this morning, but it was startling. $100 million has already been spent on the New Hampshire primary by super PACs and by candidates. And what's the percentage? 95% by super PACs, 5% by candidates. Why is that? It's what Mr. Peabody said, Citizens United. I had the honor for a number of years of being Warren Rudman's law partner, and he was a very straightforward and straight-speaking guy, and when he decided to run for the United States Senate in 1980, he didn't start until February in 1980 for an election in September and then a general election in November. And the first thing he said was, and we all gasped, I won't take any out-of-state PAC money. And he didn't. And he had to get along on the $450,000 it took that he could raise otherwise to get elected to the Senate. This year, the Senate election in New Hampshire is estimated to be going to attract $30 million. And it's not because people in New Hampshire are going to contribute $30 million. It's because big interests out of state on both sides are going to want that Senate seat. So, why am I here? I got my props this morning just looking around my house. And I was thinking about big money in politics. The first thing I did was read that Union Leader headline. And what did it say? It said $95 million by the PACs, $5 million by the candidates, 80% of the PAC money is used in negative ads, 20% of the PAC money is used in positive ads. Most of the candidate money is used for positive messages about the candidates, which means the overwhelming amount of money that we're having blasted at us, and the media and the mailings in your house, I've stopped reading them. I don't know if you've stopped reading them, but they just come in droves. We have Republicans and Democrats in our house, so we get them from everybody. I've stopped looking at them. And they're funny. I brought a few of them with me. I just looked around my table and I said, what have I got here? I've got this one that says, this is why you should be for Governor Kasich. It's a positive one. I got this one. It's why you should be for Governor Bush. It's a positive one. And then I got this one. Nice, slick piece of paper. It's all the stuff of why you shouldn't be for Kasich, because he actually liked medical care for the elderly, and he actually liked reaching across the aisle and working with the other party, and he actually liked getting things done as governor of Ohio, and that's supposed to be bad. And then I found the funniest line that I have seen in politics this year, and I've seen it before. But think about this. Think of what Citizens United has done to us. And I'm not attacking this particular person, except it's the most blatant example of the disease. This is a brochure that came out. It's a positive brochure talking about Carly Fiorina. Vote Tuesday, February 9th. Paid for by Carly for America. This has not been approved or coordinated with any candidate or candidates committee. Give me a break. Carly for America, not coordinated with any candidate or candidate committee. I got a telephone call from her husband on tape, and he told me all the reasons why he loved his wife and why I should vote for him. Glad he loves his wife. Glad he thinks I should vote for her. And then he said, with a straight face, and this message was paid for by Carly for America, not associated with any candidate or candidate committee. And I got to tell you, I'm gullible, but I'm not that gullible. What's the problem? The problem is big. The New Hampshire primary is in jeopardy. It's never been in jeopardy as much as it's in jeopardy today. And why is it in jeopardy? It's in jeopardy because of big media and big money. Why is the New Hampshire primary worth anything? Yes, we like all these people coming here. Yes, we like the attention. I think it's great for business. That big building down there near the Fisher Cat Stadium where WMUR is, known as the building the primary built. That's all great. It's good for the economy, but that's not why the New Hampshire primary is important. The New Hampshire primary is important because it gives us, as citizens of New Hampshire, the opportunity to look these people in the eye, talk to them, and evaluate them, and decide for whom we want to vote. I've been doing this in primaries, I hesitate to say, since 1968. I was over in Durham the other day giving a speech about the Ballot Law Commission, of which I am the chairman. And I realized as I drove to Durham that I went there as a freshman 50 years ago. And it was startling to realize that. But I've been doing this since 1968. I've been watching these primaries. It's been fun to meet these folks, to look at them, to kick the tires, to know that they all had a chance to run for president. What do we have now? We've got all this money. We've got all these people telling us what to do, and then we have the media. Last week was or Monday, or whenever the heck it was whatever it is that they do in Iowa took place. And 37 of their favorite people got together and decided what was going to happen to America. And what did they tell us the next day? Mrs. Clinton won. I don't know if Mrs. Clinton won or not, but it looked like a tie to me. And then they said, and in New Hampshire, you better look at Rubio if you don't like Trump and, who's that other guy, Cruz. I hesitate to even say the name. You better look at Rubio if you don't like them, because he came third in Iowa, and therefore he's the person you should look at in New Hampshire. Like all these other people don't count. And I've got to tell you, that's jeopardizing our primary. Because if it is dictated by what the people can spend money on, what the big money people can spend money on, and what the media tells us to do, then the New Hampshire primary is meaningless. And even if it's still first, it's still meaningless. So it's in jeopardy. I've done, I think, this year what everybody should do when they're picking a candidate. I looked at the list and I said, who's running? Now, when you get your ballot next Tuesday, if you're voting in the Democratic primary, there are going to be 28 candidates on the ballot. If you get a Republican ballot, there are going to be 30 candidates on the ballot. And the interesting thing in New Hampshire, of course, is we have a law that says each candidate has to be in the same position on the ballot and an equal number of ballots. So think of what the poor Secretary of State has to do when there are 30 of them or 28 of them. He's got to print 30 ballots in one primary and 28 in the other. But more than that, you have that number of people to consider. Now, most of them you've never heard of. And if you're voting in the Democratic primary, you're down to 2. If you're voting in the Republican primary, you're probably down to 7 or 8. But I looked at the people and I said, who was I going to vote for? This is the partisan part. And I looked at them and I said, well, We've got a rich businessman from New York who builds buildings and makes a lot of noise. And but for the big media, we never would have heard of him. And we've got a former CEO, businesswoman, who's very smart. And we've got a very talented surgeon. And we've got 3 first-term senators. And we have a bunch of former office holders. And I looked at them all. And I went to see them, and they did all the things that makes it fun to be in New Hampshire. And then I looked at the 3 governors. Now, what is it about a governor that commends him for president? Maybe nothing. I can think of some former governors, even some former governors that have been president, which wouldn't commend a former governor to be president. But I looked at these 3 former governors, and I said, those 3 guys are pretty good. What's the problem for the Republican primary voters? There's 3 of them. And I looked at all of them, and I finally decided, like a lot of other New Hampshire people have decided, that I was going to vote for John Kasich. I didn't know John Kasich. I didn't know who John Kasich was. I'd heard of him, but I wasn't sure why. But I came to the same conclusion a lot of other people came to, and let me read you the list of names. In fact, let me tell you a little story. I was up in Bow at the town hall for a town hall meeting, and I walked in early, and there were 3 people setting up the chairs. They were named John E. Sununu, former United States Senator, Gordon Humphrey, former United States Senator, and Dick Sweat, former Democratic Congressman. And they were setting up the chairs. And I asked them all, why are you doing this? And they said, because we were in Congress with John Kasich, and we really, really like him. One of those guys is a lot more conservative than I am. One of those guys is a little more conservative than I am. And one of them's a little more liberal than I am. But they knew him, and that was ratification. In addition to Senators Humphrey and Sununu, the people that are supporting Kasich from New Hampshire that have looked at all the candidates and could support anybody include Doug and Stella Scammon, Tom Rath, former Congressman Chuck Douglas, former Senate President Ed DuPont, and a whole lot more. Why? You saw Governor Kasich on here. I've had a lot of people say to me, he's not exciting. I said, well, he's from Ohio. I mean, you know, people from Ohio are nice, solid folk. But he's been a congressman for a long time. He was chairman of the Budget Committee when it balanced the budget, along with Democrats and Republicans, and helping a Democratic president and a Republican speaker make a balanced budget the last time our budget was balanced. He was on the Defense Appropriations Committee for 18 years. He's been a governor for 2 terms. And when he ran for re-election in Ohio, he got 60% of the Republican vote and 54% of the Democratic vote, and 25% of the black vote. And he's gotten things done. And that, unfortunately, in this day and age, makes him a suspect for a lot of people. He's the kind of guy that I want to vote for. I don't know if he's going to win. I don't know if he's going to lose. But the New Hampshire primary is about our opportunity to look at these people, see who they are, and do it. And I just would urge you and anybody else who's listening or sees this to think about that. You don't have to make the same conclusion I did, but don't do it because of big money and because of big media. Thank you very much.